Hi, I'm David Hearle, and in this session, we're going to talk around how we plan an evaluation. So let's think for a moment how we expect evaluations to be planned. Firstly, we need to think in terms of the information that's required, the evaluation mandate, the terms of reference, transferring the mandate, then the evaluation proposal, specifying the mandate, and the inception report, where the chosen evaluators tell the client what the client's real questions are. These stages before the inception report are all around really why we are doing the evaluation. So they may be coming from the funder or the program management, and it's the stage before the evaluation starts and the appointment of evaluators. Once the evaluation starts, they start by collecting information. Normally, this tends to be a desk report at stage one, where all project documents and program documents are analysed. Once that is done, the evaluators will then go where something is happening and look for information. So this is where the evaluators will visit maybe some particular project activities or interventions or meet with some beneficiaries. Once the evaluators have got their findings, they've got to try and pull that together into some sort of story and narrative and conclusions, and trying to work out what could have been done differently in terms of the recommendations. Normally that appears as a draft final report, which is shared with the stakeholders, the funders, the program, the project. The client may have some ideas that they felt should have been covered, and these will be picked up on by the evaluation team. Eventually, we're ending up in a final report. So that sort of is a fairly standard process we go through in a fairly standard evaluation. Looking at the actual evaluation itself, we can break it down in terms of a preparatory phase. At that stage is where the terms of reference for the evaluation are set. Now, it could be that, and it's quite normal that this would happen, the client, the funder maybe, commissions an evaluation from an external source. So they would come up with the terms of reference, and a consultancy group or individual would respond with a technical proposal. This is then agreed between the client and the submission of the proposal and who did that, and then the contract to start begins. Implementation. As I said previously, most evaluations start with a fairly comprehensive desk study, and usually an inception report is formulated at the outset in terms of working out what the evaluators are going to do, the approach they're going to take, and giving indications of where they might visit and the kind of things they would do, and would include all the evaluation questions as well. We then have the stage where the evaluators go to the field to collect findings, to answer the evaluation questions, and then they synthesize all of that data into a draft final report. We then have a period of dissemination and follow-up. During this period, the draft final report might well be modified based on further evidence, and a final report would be produced. Once everything has been agreed and the final report has been accepted, then the findings should be then communicated to all relevant stakeholders. Evaluations are planned and implemented in a complex and often unstable environment. Many stakeholders are often involved, each having different interests, so changes to evaluations can be expected during the whole process. I think I found one of the main challenges is staying on track in terms of a method and trying to reconcile different requirements with the methods that you want to use. And what we often find, different stakeholders may have less enthusiasm for parts of the evaluation than the evaluators have. Yep. Some people may be concerned that the evaluators are going off on the wrong track or have missed an important element of the program or project. There could be some politics in play, that the funder may have an agenda, even to go so far as to see how they could close a project. And so they will be taking a fairly negative stance. All of this really plays to the complexity of the evaluation team trying to satisfy this. And often I think you find that the evaluation team often has to sit almost between what the funder wants and expects and the project and program are also expecting. And so trying to reconcile those requirements is a big skill of the evaluation team. In those first stages, consult with key partners about the evaluation purpose, objective, questions and use. Clarify the purpose. Identify the use of the evaluation. Identify standards and criteria that should guide the evaluation. An evaluation management group is a group that sort of is the group that kind of manages the whole process. So in simple projects and programs, context between the evaluation manager and different stakeholder groups can be maintained without establishing a formal organization for evaluation management. But in a more complex evaluation, where there are many different stakeholders, we need to form a reference group or steering group to control it. And that is a fairly formalized thing where different key stakeholders are there, and they will be the ones that will receive the report. That reference group is an advisory body and formed to give stakeholders an opportunity to participate and deciding key issues during the evaluation process. Involving representatives of major stakeholder groups is likely to enhance the credibility of the evaluation and may also create a more active interest in the results of the study among those involved. So this is the sort of typical process for an evaluation reference group. So what is the members' strategic interest at the start? What are the group members' focal areas? What are the objectives of different members of the group? What questions might the members have? And then, importantly, the reference group must ensure that the DAC and cross-cutting issues are contained within the evaluation. Some of the process you want to go for is, in terms of the evaluation reference group, is into working out what are the key questions that you want the evaluation to answer. So it's important to get these agreed. So, for example, questions might be, how were project resources and procedures used for fostering the Tanzania road reform program? How did the project coordinate with other development partners in order to foster the road reform program? Was there coherent management? Was there coordinated management? Was there complementary management? Was there sustainable management? So what tends to happen at the outset are coming up with some of those general questions that everybody feels need answering. And that may take some time to do. So that is often done in combination between the different stakeholders so that there is agreement on the general areas that the evaluation will be looking at. Evaluation questions are the specific questions that the evaluation team will be asking during the evaluation process. These may come from prior evaluations or similar evaluations in other locations. They may well want to look at the assumptions and contextual factors in developing the theory of change. So evaluators often need to look beyond the immediate things that the project or program has done and look at some of those external factors as well. So there'll be questions around the assumptions. There'll be questions that come from the clients and stakeholders. Maybe some questions around professional standards, checklists and guidelines. And also, what is the knowledge of the consultant team doing it? They will have their own ideas on questions. It's important that the OEC DAC criteria are followed as part of the evaluation. It's a common standard that each evaluation will answer around relevance, coherence, effectiveness, efficiency, impact, and sustainability. And what we try to do is organize our questions around each of those elements and report on each one. There may be some cross-cutting issues that need to be dealt with, and there may be some management or partnership issues that are important that the evaluation team will need to have a look at. Other tasks for the steering committee at those initial stages, providing inputs to the terms of reference, formally accepting the terms of reference, monitoring the recruitment of the external evaluators, approving the selection of evaluators, commenting on draft reports, and approving the final report. So that was a few tips and things around the planning process for an evaluation. One thing we didn't mention, something that you might need to consider, is when we appoint evaluators, are we going to use external or internal evaluators? And there's always a debate around this. Mostly, I would say these days we rely on external evaluators to do end of project reviews. Midterm review, we might have external, but also appoint someone from the project or program or organization to be part of the process. So that way they can make sure that the evaluation team is not missing things. And it also creates greater ownership of the system to have a member of the project involved in the evaluation team. Something to think about. So in this section, there's quite a lot more detail around evaluation and how that is done. So this one was really just to help you think a little bit in terms of some of the things you would think about in terms of planning and evaluation.